Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top updates this hour. The Israel Defense Forces says it has begun the first steps of its controversial military assault on Gaza City after calling up tens of thousands of reservists. This comes as the Netanyahu government considers a new ceasefire deal accepted by Hamas to pause nearly 2 years of war. Hamas responds to the start of Israel's new attack on Gaza City, calling it a blatant disregard for efforts to broker a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Critics inside and outside Israel warn that the new offensive will endanger hostages, displace hundreds of thousands, and worsen an already dire humanitarian crisis. Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visit National Guard troops at Union Station amid protests chanting "Free DC." The scene marks the latest flashpoint in President Trump's crackdown across the nation's capital. President Donald Trump's administration has imposed sanctions on 2 judges and 2 prosecutors at the International Criminal Court over the arrest warrant issued for Israeli officials. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the court a national security threat and an instrument of lawfare against the U.S. and Israel. US Vice President J.D. Vance says European nations must pay the lion's share for Ukraine's security guarantees as Kyiv demands protection from Russian aggression. He notes Russia seeks some Ukrainian territories while President Trump pushes a peace deal that rules out US troops but could include American air support. Texas lawmakers have approved a new congressional map designed to give Republicans an edge in next year's House of Representatives elections. This comes after 2 weeks of stalling by Democrats who fled the state in an unsuccessful bid to rally support. Hurricane Erin brushes the U.S. East Coast, soaking North Carolina's Outer Banks and forcing the closure of a key highway on the Barrier Islands. The Category 2 storm, with winds of up to 105 miles per hour, is not expected to make landfall, but authorities warn of dangerous surf and rip currents. President Xi Jinping urges unity during a surprise visit to Lhasa, marking 60 years since China established the autonomous region after annexing Tibet. Xi praises local officials for fighting separatism, but his speech avoids any mention of the Dalai Lama, who has lived in exile since 1959. Now we start with some breaking news from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó says he has offered his country as a location for peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. The announcement comes as, according to reports, Russian attacks on Ukraine's western city of Lviv kills 1 person and injures 2. Ukraine's Air Force reports one of the heaviest overnight bombardments in months. Officials say Russia launched 574 drones and 40 missiles in a massive wave of attacks targeting cities and infrastructure. Kyiv says most of the drones were intercepted, however, but damage and casualties are still being assessed. We are now joined by Shruti Dasgupta, who's an international affairs expert. She joins us live from the Indian capital to discuss this further. Shruti, news of Hungary offering as a country for this trilateral meeting and talks with Russian and Ukrainian officials. Why has Hungary been chosen, or has offered its services for negotiations for this conflict?
Greetings. Thank you so much for inviting me. I understand that Hungary's stance towards the entire Ukraine-Russia conflict is a little complex. While it openly condemns the violence and the war that is occurring in Ukraine. It also condemns the European Union for its stance on Ukraine and NATO. So it has maintained a stance which is walking the middle path on this particular war, which is quite unique on its own. So I understand that it offering itself up as a place where this kind of a negotiation happens, it shows that they understand the nuances of this war much clearer than any other European nation, let's say for France or UK or Germany. They are more pro-Ukraine aligned and more pro-EU stance and NATO stance aligned than Hungary itself. So when Hungary offers itself up, it also understands that while it's condemning the war, it does not unilaterally, univocally support EU stance on the Ukraine war. So it is an important nation where probably neutrality can be guaranteed during any kind of peace conversations.
Yeah, Shruti, and a huge barrage of Russian attacks into Ukrainian territory has been reported. 574 drones and 40 missiles, with, of course, casualties and damage being assessed still. Looking at the ground, how do you analyse what's going on in terms of aerial assaults on Ukrainian territory and how the war is going with the backdrop of the grand diplomatic efforts going forward?
The diplomatic efforts are walk a separate path from what is happening exactly on ground as of now. While we tend to focus on Ukraine more because the invasion is occurring on Ukrainian soil, we do not focus on how Ukraine kind of provokes these attacks. In my last interview with you, I had pointed out that while there were attacks in Sumy and the other regions, Ukraine was hitting out at Russian oil tankers across the Caspian Sea. They're attacking the Russian soils as well. So it's a back and forth of aerial attacks, and drone has become the new language of violence in the current modern era of warfare. So this is, while Russia, of course, is a larger nation with more resources available, Ukraine, despite its smaller size, is supported by a very large European Union. So they are also supplying a large amount of ammunition, aid, loans to ensure that the war doesn't come to an end, or at least Putin doesn't get a walkthrough in this entire war. So the back and forth of these missiles are a way of showing power that they have relevance on the talking table and cannot be rubbished. Whether it is Putin or Zelensky, they're coming from a point of power when they try and showcase these attacks.
Yes, Shruti, do stay with us. We move on to further updates from the European conflict. US Vice President J.D. Vance says Europe must take the, quote, lion's share of costs to guarantee Ukraine's security, arguing it's their continent and their responsibility. The Trump administration has warned it will no longer provide blank checks to Kyiv as President Trump seeks a peace deal to end Russia's 3.5-year war. Russia occupies around a fifth of Ukraine, and Trump has suggested territorial compromises. But President Volodymyr Zelensky insists no land will be ceded under the country's constitution. European nations are forming a coalition of the willing to support Kyiv, while Trump has ruled out US troops on the ground but left open the possibility of air support. Listen in to what the US Vice President J.D. Vance had to say in a recent interview with Fox News.
Look, the United States is open to having the conversation, but we're not going to make commitments until we figure out what's going to be necessary to stop the war in the first place. And I think that it's, the president is very good. He never takes anything off the table. He never puts anything fully on the table because he doesn't want to give away his leverage. And this is the private conversation that we're all going to have about what's necessary to stop the war. But no matter what happens, no matter what form this takes, the Europeans are going to have to take the lion's share of the burden. It's their continent, it's their security, and the president's been very clear, they're going to have to step up here.
Shruti, it's very hard to see where Donald Trump stands in this conflict. He has obviously been switching his perspective throughout his tenure in his second term in the White House. However, we saw a warming to both sides in a very short amount of time. Your thoughts about J.D. Vance's statements there about him maintaining the idea that Europe must still bear the cost of this European conflict, while also floating the idea of the possible establishment of US air support when it came to the security of Ukraine's territorial integrity?
Yes, I feel that it's very amusing to watch J.D. Vance justify all of Trump's statements and his decisions, because they sometimes, both of them together or separately, end up contradicting what they had earlier said. Now, at one point of time, Trump had called this Biden's war, so by which would mean that US was very much in, hand in glove with the European states in the war of Ukraine. But now in his regime, he wants to kind of let go and cut that kind of string between Ukraine war and USA, that he wants to disconnect and wants to look at this as a transaction, and which is what is bothering most of the world. Now, let me talk some figures. I believe the USA has spent about close to 185 billion in terms of the Ukraine war, and most of it has gone in terms of the military assistance, as in they would probably be buying from the arms lobby. So the money goes from one hand of USA into the other hand of USA, while Ukraine gets a few weapons and to make sure that Putin's Russia is troubled. Now, on a very small section of it has been given as the budgetary assistance, which again goes back into paying the European Union as well as USA for whatever aid, medical or otherwise, they buy from them. And a very, very smaller section of that also goes as loans, which will, including the last 20 billion loan, which is now which was said that will be paid off from the Russian frozen assets interest. So it is very funny when they say that it is no longer USA's war, it's Europe's war. And Europe, of course, has spent a very small amount. I think up till now, they have only spent about $36 billion and compared to the 185 that USA has spent. And this is entire conflict happening in Europe to secure Europe's interests as well as NATO's interests. So they've just spent that much. And only in the last 1 year, because of the kind of tightening of screws, they have spent about close to 8.7 billion in 2025 only. So a lion's share of that 35 billion has probably come out now. So when they say that it is going to be Europe's lion's share, they are going to have to provide the equipment, they're going to have to provide the aid and the money and the loans that is going to ensure the security guarantees that Ukraine would probably need after provoking the bear of Moscow.
Yes, Shruti, thank you very much for bringing in those figures. Great analysis. Your insight is always very much valued. We now move on, do stay with us, to the United States, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visited Union Station in Washington to thank National Guard troops deployed in the U.S. Capitol. They were also joined by White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller in a rare scene of top officials greeting soldiers in the heart of an American city. Let's listen in to what Vance and Hegseth had to say during their meeting with the Guard troops.
Play safe. If you look at what's happened in Washington, D.C. in just the past 9 days, we've seen a 35% reduction in violent crime. We've seen over a 50% reduction in robberies. We are seeing real... Well, look, we'll ultimately let the President of the United States determine where we are after 30 days of this emergency order. I think that we're going to make a lot of progress over the next 20 days. I think that we're 9 days into this thing. But if the President of the United States thinks that he has to extend this order to ensure that people have access to public safety, then that's exactly what he'll do.
The Defense Department is proud to be standing with you on the President and ensuring we have a safe capital that is beautiful and residents can come visit. We're committed to this mission just like the one at the southern border and in Los Angeles. Our law enforcement.
Earlier, the Justice Department opened an investigation into whether crime data in D.C. was manipulated. And U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro has detected prosecutors to stop seeking felony charges for violating the city's ban on rifles and shotguns, saying it conflicts with Supreme Court gun rights rulings. The White House says the crackdown has led to more than 550 arrests and the seizure of 76 illegal guns. But city leaders point to statistics showing overall crime is down 7% over the year. The same decline seen before the crackdown. Outside Union Station, protesters jeered officials, chanting for DC's freedom, where Miller sharply dismissed them. Shruti, critics have phrased this as authoritarianism, the same situation which happened in Los Angeles, California. Donald Trump obviously has the authority to bring in federal troops into a city where he deems it appropriate. What is the reason here for Donald Trump bringing in these troops, even though that the crime figures say that crime is in fact on a decline in the US capital?
Well, it is a liberal-leaning state. It's a blue state, District of California. So I believe Washington, D.C. being his seat of power, although allowed by law, he is allowed to activate troops there without any further congressional hearing or any Senate passing of the law. He can just do it because it comes directly under Trump's Trump's domain. So when he does that and the figures say something else, everybody would suspect a political motive behind it. I would suspect that it has something to do with the rise of liberal-leaning ideas and protests that are happening around in the DC, and it kind of scares him that another Capitol riot would probably be brewing around this time against him. So he's wanting to put in measures by activating the National Guard and controlling the mob before they actually do become a mob that can threaten his seat of power. Beyond that, I also understand that crime rates can be manipulated very easily by not filing crimes that are actually listed as violent crimes. So there is a fine line between what is perceived as crime or not. Like as I believe Pam Bondi said that we cannot file on 14-year-old taking a gun and shooting people off. We cannot talk about minors stabbing people on the road because they are not under the purview of law as we have understood it as of now. So there is probably a small amount of fear that is there amongst Trump supporters, as well as Israelis and Jews, I believe, currently. They are under a lot of peril in the United States due to the Gaza war. So these are measures that he's putting in place so that his seat of power stays safe for himself and those who support him.
Shruti, thank you as always. Pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for taking out the time. For our next story, we head over to West Asia, where Iran has once again pushed back against European pressure on its nuclear program. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says European powers have no legal right to trigger snapback sanctions under what he called the moribund nuclear 2015 deal. Speaking to state news agency IRNA, Araghchi stressed that if Europe lacks the authority to reinstate sanctions, it also cannot extend the October deadline to trigger them. The statement comes as tensions rise over the future of the nuclear accord, with Iran limiting cooperation with the UN's atomic watchdog following its conflict with Israel. European powers, meanwhile, continue to warn Tehran against further breaches of the agreement. We're now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, who's a fellow at the Hudson Institute. He joins us live from Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. If these sanctions were to come back in or snap back in, what would be the effect on the Iranian economy as it stands right now? And also, when Iran says that Europe is not allowed to impose these sanctions back on their country, what does it mean?
Iran has under the economic sanction for a long time. So because of the economic sanction, Iran lost the chance to develop economically, that's true. But at the same time, Iran has already adjusted the situation under the economic sanctions. So that's why even if the EU imposed the economic sanction to Iran, Iran can survive, and Iran's will to possess nuclear weapon is fixed, I believe. So if the EU and other countries want to prevent Iran to possess a nuclear weapon, it relies on capability, not will. Will is strong, so capability is the target. So how to reduce the capability to develop nuclear weapon, or how to prevent Iran possess to procure nuclear materials? Especially indeed the most important resource to develop nuclear weapon is nuclear scientists. Human resource demand long time to develop. So education is needed. Education demand long time. So that's why nuclear scientist is the most important path to develop nuclear weapon. So that's why, indeed, under the current situation, in the economic sanction is just gesturing. The reality is how to damage the capability is a matter, I believe.
Yes, indeed. And Dr. Nagao, Abbas Araghchi, Iran's top diplomat yesterday, said that Iran can't completely sever ties with the IAEA, the top UN nuclear watchdog, which of course said that it was enriching uranium at an alarming rate previously. Your analysis on how Iran can possibly develop its relationship with the UN nuclear watchdog, and what obstacles stand in the way of this and its stance currently towards uranium enrichment and its nuclear program?
Iran's will is very fixed and strong, so that's why the IAEA tried to prevent Iran to possess nuclear weapon. Iran will not accept, because IAEA watchdog means that the information related to the nuclear facility or situation of the nuclear development revealed to the other countries. So that's why Iran want to hide the information related to their nuclear development program. This means that will of Iran to possess nuclear weapon is fixed. So that's why why Iran want to possess nuclear weapons matter. Originally, they want to maintain the nuclear weapon because of this is war against Israel is one thing, but another thing is, of course, if Iran possesses a nuclear weapon, Iran is the leading country in the Muslim country in Middle East. So that's why the two becomes a great power. Iran want to get a nuclear weapon. So that's why if Iran's will is fixed, that is a concern, because other country cannot accept Iran's possession of the nuclear weapon. If Iran possesses, they will possess too. So that's why how to stop the nuclear program is matter. But if the sanction or watchdog rely on the or target of this sanction is Iran's will, this is not effective. Effective way is only capability under current situation.
Dr. Nagao, thank you very much. You are staying with us. We now move east, where Cambodia has taken international observers to the front line of its border dispute with Thailand. The Defence Ministry escorted ASEAN monitors to several damaged sites, including the UNESCO-listed Pare Vihar temple. Officials say the visit was aimed at showing the destruction caused by recent clashes, which left historic monuments scarred and civilians displaced. The ASEAN Interim Observer is assessing conditions following a ceasefire agreed last month. That truce came after weeks of artillery bombardments, airstrikes and infantry battles that killed at least 43 people and forced more than 300,000 people from their homes. We are joined once again by Dr. Nagao. Dr. Nagao, is this ceasefire going to hold? It has been labelled as fragile multiple times, and now people are going to the front line, assessing the damage. Some excessive displacement occurred, casualties of 43 people. However, tensions are still there.
Yes, tension is still there, of course, because they killed each other. This means that killed people hasn't returned, of course. So that's why even if they stop the battle, still emotionally they want to revenge. So that's why in this case, one of the most important issue is if Thai and Cambodia fight each other and rise hate mindset, it will damage the framework of ASEAN. Because ASEAN is consisted by 10 countries, but they face the first problem is Myanmar is under civil war, and now Thai and Cambodia fight each other. This means that ASEAN will be divided, the 10 separate countries. So that is a nightmare for ASEAN. ASEAN need to show the presence and maintain their framework that is needed to survive. So that's why this time ASEAN try to show the presence, check the situation, and try to mediate to. This year, Malaysia is leading responsible country with ASEAN. So that's why Malaysia leads negotiation has happened. And Malaysia leads the ASEAN group, checks the situation, and try to manage hate mindset between Thai and Cambodia is needed. Without this, the people will think that they do not need ASEAN. So that's why this is a crisis not only for the Thai and Cambodia, but also for ASEAN.
Yes.
So that is kind of situation.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao, as always. Pleasure getting your insight on those developing topics. We now stay in the region next, where according to reports, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un praised heroic North Korean troops who fought for Russia in the war against Ukraine during a meeting with officers of the Army's overseas operations. Kim gave high praise to their achievements in leading units of our armed forces, which took part in operations in the Kursk region of Russia, leading them to victory. Those are statements. The report also states that North Korea has sent over 10,000 troops to aid Russia's war in Ukraine and is reportedly planning an additional deployment. Kim and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a strategic partnership treaty in June of last year, which includes a mutual defense pact. Before Putin's meeting with US President Donald Trump, Kim spoke to Putin by phone and reaffirmed complete support for Moscow. Earlier, Kim honored North Korean soldiers killed in the war with Ukraine, covering their coffins with flags and placing both of his hands on them in a rare public display. We are now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who's a journalist for the Korea Herald, and he joins us live from the South Korean capital of Seoul. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, as always. Pleasure to have you on the program. Can you analyze briefly the relationship which Moscow and North Korea has? What does one another get out of this agreement?
Both the sides are in a symbiosis relationship right now because both the sides need each other. And if you particularly ask about this move of Kim Jong-un, I see it as an exercise of military science where after or amid the war, you have to motivate the soldiers and the military personals. So this is not a new thing that Russia and North Korea is cooperating and they are trying to enhance and praising each other. President Putin also recently termed this as heroic deed, and now we are seeing Kim Jong-un also doing the same. So this should be seen as a motivating exercise because in military science, cohesion is always needed, and this is what Kim Jong-un is doing right now.
Yes, Dr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us on that topic and giving us our insight. You are staying with us. We now move on. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in the Tibetan capital of Lhasa for his second visit as China's leader. The commemorative 60th anniversary of Tibet's establishment as an autonomous region. 6 years after the 14th Dalai Lama fled into exile in India to a failed uprising, China's Communist Party established the Tibet Autonomous Region in 1965, making it the fifth and final autonomous region in the country following Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, Guangxi and Ningxia. To govern, stabilize and develop Tibet, the priority is to ensure political stability, social stability, ethnic unity and religious harmony, said the Chinese president. Xi last visited Tibet in July of 2021, where he urged the people to follow the party. His visit was widely interpreted by outside observers as a sign of the Communist Party's confidence that order had finally been established in a region with a long history of protest against Chinese rule. Dr. Kumar, what is the importance here of Xi's visit to Tibet, especially with the Dalai Lama in exile?
Right now, the timing is very crucial, I would say, because after a long period of dissatisfaction and in a conflicting scenario, China and India both are reviving their relationship. We can see Chinese President Wang Yi's visit just 2 days before, and Prime Minister Modi is also to visit China for the SCO. So this timing is very crucial because the bone of contention as Tibet between India-China relations is not new. If you see the history, it dates back to 1951. Then in 1965, also the Chinese Communist Party had strategic interest, and it has been ongoing. But the stance has never changed, and this should also be seen as a normal exercise to engage the Han Chinese people there, because China is trying to engage more Han Chinese people there and trying to build a ethnic harmony there, and that is why you can see from the event which is happening. And China has different interests as well. If you see from the carbon neutrality perspective, China says that they are going to build this hydroelectric hydropower plant, and it is going to be to solve the various problems in the region, acting as Asia's tower. So there are different strategies and different interests involved here, domestic as well as international. When I say international, this includes India also. So that is why the timing is very critical for both the countries. And I hope that, as a scholar, I hope that both the countries should be should not be in conflict over this Tibet region once again.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for your insight. Pleasure to have you on the programme. Well, that is all that we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.